Good morning, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us here at our webinar for this morning, where we'll be exploring the topic, International Client Opportunities for Jamaican BPOs. My name is Conrad Robinson. I'm manager at JAMPRO with responsibility for global digital services. But before we get into our webinar this morning, I'm going to share with you our agenda that will be guiding us for the next hour. My colleague, Deidre Dixon, Senior Consulting Officer, Global Digital Services Department, will be officially welcoming you, after which we will have a presentation by Mr. Christopher Denny, Vice President, Investment and Linkages, JAMPRO, on the subject, Investor Accelerator, Unblocking Global Demand for Jamaica's BPO. And then our keynote speaker will be Mr. Brad Meiller, and I will be introducing Brad, who will be taking us through market and client opportunities, and at the end of which I will be hosting a Q&A and giving the vote of thanks. I now invite my colleague, Deidre Dixon, to do the official welcome and opening remarks. I understand that Deidre experiencing some technical difficulties, so please allow me to officially welcome you to our webinar this morning, where we are exploring international client opportunities. A part of our remit here at JAMPRO is to help our existing BPO companies to grow their business. And to that end, we have curated this webinar to focus on how you can gain new clients for your businesses to grow your businesses in Jamaica. So we are pivoting on JAMPRO, having understand that the BPO landscape is somewhat at a level where we believe that we have an opportunity to grow from a local perspective. And so this morning's webinar is really designed to help you, our BPO operators, understand what the market looks like and how you can gain new clients for your business. Having said that, I'm going to now invite Mr. Christopher Denny, who is the Vice President of Investment and Linkages here at JAMPRO, to do his presentation. Mr. Denny, over to you.
Hey, good morning, Conrad. And good morning to all our patronizing members here. My name is Christopher Denny, as Conrad told you. I just wanted to first start by extending a very warm JAMPRO welcome. Your business and your success is very important to us. I thought that in looking at my discussion this morning about the investment accelerator, I would start by just giving a quick little synopsis or background of what JAMPRO has done and how far JAMPRO has come. We're 35 years into the mission of developing investments for Jamaica. I'm still a JAMPRO newbie, joining February of this year. I claim JAMPRO newbie. I'm the newest member of the JAMPRO team here on this call, so I claim the JAMPRO newbie, but I'm very aware of JAMPRO's history and JAMPRO's success. JAMPRO is renowned for introducing new industries to Jamaica that has had very positive economic impact. I would certainly say that at the very least in the tourism and BPO sectors, manufacturing sector, agribusiness sector, that impact has been felt. Certainly the BPO, my own personal observation is that BPOs have had a very, very strong impact on the reduction of unemployment in Jamaica during the past maybe 10, 15 years. And that is the sector of focus for this particular call. We are configured now, I would say every now and again, JAMPRO will go through a kind of strategic overview, review, and then restart to make sure that we're keeping with the times. I think the last 4-year strategy re-aimed JAMPRO's efforts at maximizing exports. So it's maximizing investments, I should say, and exports. So our two main outbound divisions here at JAMPRO is aimed at investment and linkages, which is the division that Conrad and I speak to you from. Our aim is to make sure that we have investments that are taking place in Jamaica, and that can take place in the form of not just foreign direct investments, which used to be the main language and main boast, but also local direct investments. So you could almost trump the local direct and foreign direct and just say investment, which is the first name in our nomenclature. And then linkages. Linkages is very important because we would have had a number of investors that have come into Jamaica over the years. They would have set up the business, they would have brought us employment. In some cases, they would have recorded profits on their local books and paid local taxes. But to a very large extent, these are external investors investing in Jamaica with a view of repatriating their profits. So beyond the impact on employed persons, their wage and their salaries, the wages and their salaries, the retention for Jamaica is not as great as we would like. But we still welcome the investments and we still encourage investors to come into Jamaica, but we know that we can and should try to do better. So that's been an important development for us. So I don't want to understate the importance of getting jobs, whereas we were a country that had unemployment not too long as high as 15%. We're now down to 3.3%. But that's what JAMPRO does now. Investment and linkages is my division. And then we have an export division that is very focused on enabling and growing exports. They travel to markets where I would say we have soft targets. One of the recent discoveries, if I could speak a little liberally before it's stated as an empirical fact, is that we seem to have soft targets for our exports in other Anglophone countries of the Caribbean. There's a great liking and favor to JAMPRO, so Jamaican products, I'm sorry, JAMPRO as well. And that's a market that's very soft for us, but difficult to explore because we don't have the right shipping lanes. So we're looking at how we can resolve getting easier access to those markets and grow Jamaica's economy by taking advantage of those soft targets. But also the export division makes a number of forays into traditional markets, the North American market, the European markets, and we have a number of deployed contacts. In fact, we have a North America representative office, and there's also an office in London, and we have expert team members there that help us to deepen further our reach into those markets. So we have a very well developed export unit. We also have a program called Export Max. Export Max teaches you all the legalese from A to Z of preparing yourself for exports. You have to have capabilities to deliver quality. You have to have capabilities to deliver quantity, and you have to be able to do both of these things consistently, delivering quality and quantity. If you're going to be taking on some of the big markets where our goods have a take, Jamaica, as you probably know. Yes. Hello. I heard I thought somebody's asking me a question. I'm going to continue. All right, am I okay?
Yes, you're fine, Chris. Go ahead.
Thank you. Right. So so I was trying to paint a quick picture of what we currently do. We continue to pursue new investment projects for Jamaica, and Conrad here is one. He focuses on the global digital services, and I try my best to support him and his team. And then we have other sectors of focus. Now, our current situation, which I've been hinting at, I think JAMPRO has done a great job of delivering new industries to Jamaica and new projects for those industries in Jamaica. But one of the opportunities that we see now as we look at our Jamaican companies is how can we help them to get to the next level? How can we take that next big step? And let's look at the BPO industry as a case in point. Not exactly certain of the history. I remember some of the early players in the BPO industry, the call center industry, which would have been, I think, the first component before we did business process outsourcing, We're looking at IPOs and KPOs, information process outsourcing, knowledge-based process outsourcing. We're getting into that upper level up in the food chain of this industry. But it would have started with those investors seeking our talented young labor pool who do certain things well. We sell well, we do problem solving well. But what we want, one of the things that we noticed is that as we learned about the industry, because we were engaged in it as employees, it seems now that we have a number of our own entrepreneurs who have invested in the industry, and you have a number of key players that are Jamaican companies. No, I don't think I have any reason to be ashamed to tell you that we want to see Jamaican companies doing well. And so from an investment accelerator point of view, we've delivered those projects, we've brought in those new businesses, but how can we get the Jamaican companies to do better? What can JAMPRO do that can enable those Jamaican companies to do better? And so the investment accelerator really is talking about sector by sector, how can we help our Jamaican industry to grow, or Jamaican companies in the various industries to grow so that we could see more meaningful economic growth for Jamaica. I dare say that while we record economic growth because of foreign investors to the extent that you have repatriated profits or profits that can be trapped outside of Jamaica as people do business in Jamaica, maybe our economic growth is a little understated, and certainly we're not benefiting from the kind of tax revenues that we could if our Jamaican companies were recording and trapping all the profits in Jamaica. So we're kind of maybe ambitiously and patriotically looking at how we can help our Jamaican companies to grow. And that's what brings us to this particular point of this exercise. What can JAMPRO do for you? You are an expert in your business. You are on a daily basis looking for greater opportunities in your business. You are more expert at your business than we are. And so what we think we can do for you is what we're going to do. We can bring them to the table. We facilitate any kind of new initiative, and we're very good at facilitating how you can access government services, how you can get government authorization to do particular things. That is something we think that we can do for you. We have government agencies that are outfitted to help our Jamaican companies, not necessarily so much so for the BPO sector, but outfits like RADA, Scientific Research Council, those things have relevance in certain industries. For you, we are all over the world. We're all over the world, and we regularly attend events where there are business opportunities that are appealing to the BPO sector. So we think that we have a great network that we can offer you. We always have the ability to bring new markets easier to you than you otherwise might have done on your own. So even here in this sector, we think that we have a particular emphasis. And so those are the things that we think that we can bring for you. And so make sure I'm covering all of my points. And one of the things that I've found is this question of efficiency, which I think is very important in your sector. What is the spend that you have to make to achieve each of your dollar gains? And to the extent that technology can improve your capability to deliver profitably, we at JAMPRO want to identify ways, creative ways of making that happen. And that is almost a little reckless of me to say, but if you're using software technology that could be upgraded, want to help you to get that upgraded in any way that we can. We're not a investment facilitation. We don't mediate on funds. We don't bring you, why is this thing coming up on the screen? We don't intermediate like a financial institution is what I mean to say. I'm sorry for something else just come up on my screen and I can't see you. Okay, here we are. But we know of investors, and those investors might be interested in making investments. So we may do a little matchmaking that way and enable you to get greater efficiencies if it's a matter of raising the funds to do it. So very quickly, as a summation, here at JAMPRO, we are putting together an investment accelerator program. It's been approved internally. There are some pieces that I'm trying to add to it, some further components, and very shortly, within a month, I'm hoping to reach out to companies to come and participate in our program. So if some of you here may hear more about it in the coming weeks and months. and we're going to be setting goals, right? That's how the program works. We send you an invitation to participate. We talk about what we think we can do for companies like yours. You would look at that and say, yes, you'd like to look at how we could work together. We then set up a meeting. We discuss specific goals, certain short-term goals, and then we work together to try to achieve those goals based on what we think would make you better at what you do. So we're not coming in there to tell you how to do your business. We're finding out if there's anything you think we could do for you from where we sit, in the various ways that I've mentioned. So I don't know if it's a good idea to open the floor for questions, but that is our ambitious goal. That is the point that we want to make this morning. Conrad, I think, will tell you more specifically in the short run what he knows about opportunities for your businesses overseas. He and I have spoken about it, so I know he has some tricks up his sleeve in that regard. But from a conceptual level, that is what the Investment Accelerator is all about. I didn't do a presentation, but I can summarize my notes and send to Conrad, and he can share it with you later.
Thank you very much, Chris. We really appreciate you participating this morning in the webinar and really for sharing with us what the Investor Accelerator program is all about. We're all about helping companies to grow their businesses, to expand their footprint here in Jamaica. And as you mentioned, a significant portion of what it is that we do at JAMPRO is this business of export. And usually when we think about export, we tend to think about the export of goods, those things that we grow in the ground, manufacture, etc. But a major part of our responsibility here at JAMPRO is the export of services. And the services that we refer to are services that are provided by the BPO sector, because our clients are overseas. And so the work is done here in Jamaica, but the service is utilized by clients in the overseas market. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
We really
Thank you for making that
appreciate
final
you
point. That's great.
sharing
Thank
with
you,
us
Conrad.
here this morning. Thank you.
I have to run, Conrad, to another meeting, so thank you very much.
You're welcome, Chris. Our keynote speaker this morning is, for some of us, is no stranger. He is Mr. Brad Meiller, and he is customer experience and global team contact center leader at Spectrum Brands. Brad has built his career around and for global vendor management through sourcing, selecting, and leading partners across North America, LATAM, and the Caribbean, APCA, and EMEA to deliver exceptional customer experiences at scale for both Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. He specializes in building true partnerships between clients and vendors by focusing on what matters: clear expectations, mutual accountability, and open communication. Whether he is launching a new support site or restructuring a mature operation, he uses sourcing tools like RFIs and RFPs to identify the right partners, then work cross-functionally to negotiate SOWs and MSAs that protect the business while setting up the vendor to succeed. Brad was a keynote speaker for us at our recently concluded Outsource to Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Brad Meiller, who is our keynote speaker. Over to you, Brad.
Conrad, thanks so much. I always appreciate the kind words and getting to join, opportunities like this to talk about my experience and where I see the market going, and for those of you that I haven't met, I was talking with Conrad before we got started. And, I think one thing that he recognizes within me is that, I have a deep passion for the country of Jamaica, easily more than any other location in the world. And I say that because, I started my work in BPO on the island, and specifically in Montego Bay. And I was blown away not only with the people, but also the success, the culture, just the way that they were able to rise to the occasion, learn under fire. And then also, when you think about scalability, you think about the companies and how quickly they can ramp up headcount. But when you think about what's really important in that, it's how quickly can these people ramp up their brain power and their ability to be subject matter experts, you know, within 2 months, 3 months, however quickly it needs to be. And I've gone through some different tech stacks at times, and I have seen just the worst things put together. And every time that we have faced some form of a challenge with any of my campaigns in Jamaica, we have always risen to the occasion. You know, the other part that I think that this island sets itself apart from, you know, the other geos that are out there, you know, not just in the Caribbean, but also what's in EMEA and APAC and Southeast Asia and whatnot, is, you know, I said it in the O2J conference, in that it's a culture of people that is always known to have a great vibe, personality, upbeat. But then, you know, from a North American standpoint, a lot of people don't understand everything that happens within the country. You know, with all this positivity and, you know, warm culture, there is also heartbreak. There is a common struggle where people they're fighting every day to make things move forward for their families and for themselves personally. So, you know, I kind of said this is a unique culture in a global landscape of people that just want general customer service. You know, I think the opportunity here is to present, you know, Jamaica as not just, you know, a leader in what can happen from a sales perspective, but also as the market has matured so much, and what can be done from a knowledge process perspective. It's no longer about contact centers and call centers and things like that and taking inbound calls and back office work. You know, I look at what's happening in the market with BPOs, and specifically what's happening in the market on the client side in North America. And, you know, that we're going through a lot of transformation in North America, and it's not a good one. It's a real tough story right now, as layoffs are happening every single day. You know, 5% of staff here, 7% there. And right now, for the first time in as long as I can remember, it's not the call centers that are getting, you know, kind of gutted and transformed. It's the IT teams, it's the marketing teams, it's the HR teams. And so I look at the opportunity of how can a BPO take that next step? And it's really through that that knowledge process outsourcing that Mr. Denny mentioned earlier. And that also, you know, the company that I work with, maybe they coined it or something, I'm not sure, but knowledge process outsourcing has been something that is definitely not just on my radar. We're using our vendor right now, our partner in Montego Bay, as our knowledge process outsourcer due to the constraints that we have internally with our IT and dev teams. They're working with their own internal teams and then also a subcontractor to really move the needle for us. And that's where I see, you know, as people talk about what's happening out there and AI is coming and it's going to ruin our business model and things like that. I think, you know, the same message, I'll say the same message that I told the team and everybody at the CX Outsourcers event in Munich earlier this year, is that if you're scared of AI and you think it's going to ruin everything, then it's definitely going to bite you in the rear end. The goal is, I would say, to embrace it, become the partner that knows how to use the tool inside and out, that can implement these tools inside and out. Because internally on the client side, we don't have anybody that can really help us along that journey. So your role as a partner, as a vendor, you know, with the client, it's going to become more valuable. And there's ways that you can use that to not only strengthen your partnership, but also improve your client retention, but also find a new revenue stream that you maybe hadn't tapped into yet. And I think that the people of Jamaica are more than ready and more than equipped to kind of take that next step. So a little bit about that, you know, and where I kind of see this going. And then I'll touch on some other things that I've just seen in my time as a client, and then what I've been doing. You know, I'll share my screen with you now so you can check out the small deck now. Just be kind, because I'm not a graphic designer, and I did put this one together myself. So just be kind. So can everyone see my screen? Think we're good, right?
Yes, we're good, Brad.
Yeah, great. So you can see that this is our corporate branded deck for Spectrum Brands. You can also see on the lower left-hand side of that piece, Blue Pen Collective. I do also do some consulting and, partnering with different BPOs, as well as, on the client side too, because as the landscape has changed, I think procurement has gotten its ugly hands, and it gets in the way on the side of the client. And I know it definitely gets in the way on the side of the vendor in kind of steamrolling things and pushing things through. So, my goal is always to find transformative partnerships to keep moving things forward. And I would say that's kind of where I'm going to hone in on today, is what are some things that you can do to, move the needle in terms of how you can gain more clients at a global level, not just in North America, because I think that's part of the mix, right? Everyone's wanting to think about just global. So I'm going to start going ahead. So a little bit of introduction, I know Conrad, he nailed it, and I think, I don't know who wrote that for him. It might've been me. I've been in customer experience or customer service in some way, shape, or form for over 20 years. I've been in contact center operations for at least 15, vendor strategy from a management standpoint for about 10, and I've been doing business development either as an independent broker, as an advisor for about the last 3 years, and specifically have honed in on the Caribbean. And of course, like I said earlier, my passion mainly in Jamaica, as I think that's a key demographic, that's a key geographic for not just the Caribbean, but the entire globe. As Conrad mentioned, I've managed some very large campaigns scaling over $100 million in annual spend through North America, Caribbean, LATAM, APAC, and EMEA. My expertise usually relies throughout the Caribbean. You can see there, although I do have some experience working in South Africa as well as EMEA. We've negotiated contracts. You can see an annual savings without sacrificing CX quality. My partner that we work with right now, I'll just go out there and say it, it's Contacts 360, Jackie Sutherland's team in Montego Bay. I would say they're a home run client, and I've loved or a home run vendor, and I've loved working with them. They've helped us uncover a lot of things in terms of annual savings without sacrificing CX quality and improving our tech stack. I've delivered multiple market launches, tech integrations, and governance frameworks. Whether it's been at a telecommunications company or I've helped guide other companies through that piece, and then again at Spectrum Brands. And I've partnered with a number of different Jamaican leaders, C360, Teleperformance, ITEL, Conduent, just to name a few. I know my way around that area between Montego Bay, Spanish Town, Kingston. Like I said, I've been in Jamaica for a while, and I absolutely love that place. I make it sound like I'm from there, but I will say I've been given the pin, so I'm like, special consulate, I guess, to Jamaica. Recently, my wife was down there, came back, brought me a gift from one of my old leaders. So I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the island and what everyone has to offer. So enough about that. Let's talk about what I see in the market from the client perspective, and where people usually miss on moving forward in the client piece of it. I think about the nearshore advantage. And I think, and I'm going to be blunt in some of these areas, if your only value proposition is saying that you are a nearshore organization, you've got to step it up. It's no longer nearshore. As AI capabilities continue to ramp up, nearshore is becoming less of a focal point. In terms of, language, nearshore, it's usually about language. It's not like people like me who just want to join, come to the island, visit, have boots on the ground. Everyone's budgets are tight. That's a tough one to get out there. We've got to find better ways to put value props up there. And so, when I think about Jamaica, as you've heard me say before, it's about the people. It's about the cultural alignment. The English fluency is a major piece of North America, as also the UK. If that's not a market you've been trying to tap into, I'll get into that a little bit more. But one thing on my side and my team that I always work with when working to identify, the right vendors, is organizations that can prove and show a strong cultural affinity to the brands that I operate within, whether it's telecommunications, retail, packaged goods, finance, banking, whatever it may be. That is one of the biggest reasons that I am always attracted to a Jamaican company, is because the people of the island know the products, they know the insights. You're tied close to, we're watching the same news, we're watching the same TV shows, movies, things like that. We're wearing a lot of the same clothes, supporting a lot of the same sports. That is a big selling point that I don't think many organizations on the island really push and take advantage of putting out there. I would say that you guys in Jamaica have one of the strongest CX talent pools and scalability throughout the Caribbean. I think you would rival that of the Southeast Asia teams, whether it's the Philippines or India, Pakistan, whatever it may be. You guys do have the selling point still. I mean, as much as I say nearshore isn't as important, proximity and time zone match to the US and North America clients that are out there, that's still important. Your competitive crop, you know, your cost structure, you guys don't race to the bottom. And that is something that I can appreciate. I can tell you that as I've worked with a number of different organizations, whether it's through the Southeast Asia or what's over in, whether it be Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa, the rates that you guys offer are highly competitive, if not in certain cases, beating a lot of those geos. I think one thing that you all have on your side is a government and an industry investment infrastructure for upskilling and helping you guys grow and support you. There are not many countries out there that have a JAMPRO, that have a Conrad or a Denny, you know, that can help you guys along the way and facilitate, you know, better opportunities with clients and getting out there, being a part of road shows and things like that. That's important. You guys have more tools and resources at your fingertips than a lot of these countries. And you might see things, invest in South Africa, invest in Albania, invest in Georgia. Those are all great. And while those are emerging markets, they're not mature. And they're just that. They're just emerging. They're just starting to come up. Jamaica is mature. They're mature in the contact center space, and they're gaining maturity in the knowledge process outsourcing space. And that's where I see the constant evolution and the next step of Jamaica's forefront when it comes to outsourcing. So winning the RFP game, I think right now is more incredibly valuable than anything. And this is where I've offered up a lot of my help over the last 3 years, and it's how you stand out in RFPs. I was working with a client not long ago, and he showed me a response to an RFP that he had sent over. And I said, how long did it take them to get back to you to tell you that you didn't move forward? And he said, how do you know that I didn't move forward? And I said, these questions are all are answered with yes, no's, and vague sentences afterwards. You know, you have to think about when you're going after those questions, if they sent it to you in Excel format, respond to it in their Excel format. You have to also answer the question and why that matters behind it. My advice that I would always say is, if you're responding to an RFP and you have a section that's related to IT and security, your IT leaders should be the ones answering that, not your sales team, not your CEO, unless that person is highly integrated with the IT team. If you have things from the operational standpoint, your ops leaders are the ones that go through that. Those are important check balances because they want to know that in a partnership, you're going to speak the same language. You know, that's critical. Now, you can't put a novel in every single response, but you do need to get to a granular point to where they understand that you know what you're talking about. And if you're working with those enterprise clients or prospective clients, they're the ones that's going to go, they're going to bring everyone into a room. They're going to have their procurement leader, the person that's sponsoring the project, the potential vendor manager, the IT leader who's doing the responses, the legal team. You have to make sure that you're using all of those things in the back of your mind and you're answering your questions to the best of those abilities to use that talent. Now, I think from a personal story, I'll tell you this. I was working with an organization, you know, a few years back, and we got an RFP, and I said, let me handle this. I said, I want to take this on. I'm going to bring IT into it, you know, just like I was telling you. And the leader of the organization said, no, I'm going to take this one. I said, well, let's do a fun little exercise. Let's both do one, and then we'll come back and see which one's better. And we'll see, you know, which one we want to submit. So I worked with IT, I worked with operations, workforce management, talent development to make sure all of these questions, there were about 175 questions on this RFP, and rightfully so. It was a large enterprise, North American US client. They were going to start with 150 headcount and they were going to move to probably 250, if not closer to 500 in the next 5 years with the right vendor. So I went through my exercise. The leader went through their own. We came back and you could just see ours was oodles more informative. Just really clean, really, really great stuff. The leader of the organization, it was very short. It was concise. It wasn't bad. I don't want to say it was bad, but it was definitely, there was room for improvement, right? This leader unfortunately decided he's sending his because he didn't think anyone would want to read our information, so I kind of scoffed at it. It submitted, and within 24 hours they came back and said we were not moving forward. So I knew this client. I had a colleague of mine was working there as the vendor manager. I knew what we were up against, and I sent him over mine and I said, I know we've already been removed from the RFP process. I said, but would this have changed had you received this one, the response that I had worked on with the team leaders? And he came back and he said, you would have been at the top of the list of the 8 companies that we were looking at. The things that you had going against you would have completely been overlooked if we knew that that was what was really there. So, a good lesson. I forwarded that email to the leader and, he kind of, took it on the chin and that was that. But that will show you that you need to get those subject matter experts that are in there to answer those keys. You need someone that's in procurement that knows how to facilitate those RFPs with those teams. So that way, that you're answering them to the best of your ability. I always support, as you fill out your RFP, send a pitch deck back with it. Talk about your use cases, the metrics that you've hit before, any client references that you've had. If you're already doing that, fantastic. I would expect everyone on this call, if you're a business owner, if you're a sales business development leader, you're doing these things. But if you're not, these things will help you at a most valuable level. If you can show that you've got proof in the pudding, you will set up that process to get to the second stage of the RFP, which is going to be sharpening your pencil and going back with the different pricing rate. Avoid copy paste language, buyer's notice. I can pick it out. I know if it's ChatGPT. Here's a hint. If you guys don't know it, if you use ChatGPT, if there are hyphens in it, it's probably ChatGPT. ChatGPT typically always generates AI content and verbiage, and it will always hyphen a lot of different things. And people are starting to notice that that's something in the market. So if you use ChatGPT, great. But people will pick up if it's sincere, if it's genuine, if they see a lot of dashes or hyphens in that content. I always say submit ahead of the deadlines, signal reliability, and use a strong and concise pitch deck. Anything 8 to 10 pages. Never do anything over 10 pages. You don't want that. This is just your pitch deck. This is say, here's what we have. Here's what we're going to do for you. Here's how much you're going to pay for it. Here's the outcomes. And here's some use cases that our clients have seen in working with us in similar fashion to you, whether it's tech stack, industry, CX, technical support, customer service. You have all of that at your fingertips and you've got to use it. Pricing models. That's another one that I think is incredibly valuable that most people don't think of. I had a client not long ago share with me his pricing model. And honestly, when I saw it, I couldn't understand what this leader, what the CEO was sharing. And I just said, why don't you just do headcount sliding scales for, your contact center, like 1 to 50, 50 to 100, 150 and over, or whatever makes sense for the RFP. He had never thought of that. And they've been in business for over a decade and they had never thought about a pricing model like that. He also didn't know the outcomes of what the pricing looks like within the different regions. So when I started talking about like my experience in Jamaica or South Africa or St. Lucia, he started to have like some big eyeballs and he realized he was probably missing the opportunity because he was billing everything not to his advantage to win the clients, I will say. And then I would say you need to look at partnering, as you get to the SOW stage and you're starting to iron those out. I am one that always advocates that the client and the vendor sit down together to create the SOW. I think that is incredibly valuable. I think it's fair that everyone takes a pass or two, at making their edits. But when it comes to that third pass, skip the email, request a meeting, sit down with them, throw some hardballs out there, and offer that I think we're going through one, in the past where we've offered the incentive, hit this metric or this OKR, you get an incentive. Meet the regular scheduled KPM, fantastic, no good, no bad. but also put in there and own it yourself. Performance discounts. If we don't hit this metric, like we're severely underperforming, we know that's a detriment to your business. Own it, pay it forward. The client will love it if you put that. You might grind your teeth while writing it in there, but if you're as good as you say you are, they will appreciate that. You'll never pay a discount, or you'll never give them a discount, and you'll move forward. It will just put more trust in your relationship with that client. Showing to ROI in terms of revenue growth, customer retention, cost savings, those are always things that you need to say. Like, I'm the vendor manager. I know I'm always running a business case that we need to move this service here. We need to consolidate to this area. It's easy for me to say that and articulate that, but I need to show this in terms of, to the executive team to say, I need you guys to approve this so that way I can go save you X amount of money, or we can gain this much in terms of, new tech stacks or a new revenue stream and things like that. You have to also think about it that way too. Showcase them, do a little research and be like, so we see that you're paying X amount for these types of roles. At this rate, you'll do this. Do the business case for them. If you can come to that and show them the potential of cost savings, what they can expect if you take on their business, and you can say you'll get a 2% increase in sales, a 5% reduction in customer retention, whatever it may be, articulate that to them. They'll know that you started to understand their business instead of just thinking, oh, it's a telco company, cool, or oh, it's a travel company or a car rental company. There's a lot more out there that you can do with this. And just to touch on before I think about it, when you send over your pitch deck, it should be just that. It should be a pitch deck. It should be a PowerPoint presentation or something similar. It should never be a Word document saved as a PDF with some clip art. Now, I'm not one to talk, because you can see here I've got some auto-generated images that I've just copied and pasted. But I would say, if you have a design team or a partner that's helping you craft, your website or your pitch decks or your company overview presentations, tap into that for when you're sending those forward. No client at any level is going to take you serious if you have just sent over a 3-page Word document with a couple bullets and things like that. You'll embarrass yourself. You're not going to move forward. I'm just being honest. I worked with a CEO who was hell-bent on just sending something like that instead of a pitch deck that I had created. We didn't win a single one in a year and a half using just the Word document. And we had made the transition, and we started to see a better response there. So it's incredibly important that you look professional, that you're crisp and clean, just like your website is. You want to look just like your website that's out there. Think about the different solutions that you can provide, whether it's hybrid, leveraging different time zones, skill advantages, geographic wins that are there. Is the billing the same if they're going to have workforce in Montego Bay versus Spanish Town versus Kingston versus Ochos Rios? Break it down for them. Show them where they can get the best wins. You know where the best talent's going to be for this project and for this campaign. Show them that. Articulate that back to them. But also highlighting everything at every point in time. I just said 4 markets right there. That's Jamaica's differentiator. You've got an island that you can travel from one end to the other in 2.5 hours, and you're going to go across some very strong markets of different headcount talent, different scalability places. Use that to your advantage. You have those different things. If you don't have a secondary location yet, maybe it's something to start considering if you've got the right cash flow or just the right potential client that's coming in. So there's more to pricing models. That's something that I've had to help a number of different organizations figure out over the years, is that sliding scales win for both parties. But it's also something that let's explore outcome-based pricing or different tiered pricing to help strengthen your financial portfolio at the same time, because you're in business to attract but also retain clients. They're in business with you because they need to continue to have great CX or improve their CX and also meet their financial budgets every single year. Pitch decks and value props that stick. You've heard me mention it a couple different times. Slides, they need to be visual and they can't be text heavy. You're going to be doing the talking. They're going to be doing the reading. It's going to be important for that to gravitate, their eyes to the right things. I always say aim for 10 strong eye-popping slides. It's got to match your website. Your branding has to be all over it, as does theirs, and show that a little bit that was out there. I received a random proposal the other day, and I had never even entertained anyone for this, and this was for a completely different market, for not North America, and they just sent it over, and I'm like, what is this? And normally I wouldn't pay any attention to it, but the pitch deck looked so good. It was so clean. They had done their research on our organization, the brands that we support, the different divisions that we have, what we're probably paying in the European market. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, how do I not pick up the phone and just call this person and be like, how do you know all of this? And let's have a conversation about it. That was something that it grabbed my attention and immediately got me to think, like, maybe that's a different spot that I've not considered. I always say use 2 to 3 clear value propositions backed by your proof, use cases, whether it's CX, KX, multi-service operations. You've got to showcase that tenfold through everything. Showing results visually, charts, before and after scenarios, A/B test models, testimonials, things that are going to support you and your brands along the way. And also, talk about your story, how that's integrated with the Jamaica story, quality, the cultural compatibility with North America, the opportunity for scalability. Those are all things that I think that need to happen for you guys to continue to grow and be successful. Outside of that, there are a number of different opportunities for you guys to look at how you can have stronger relationships with different partners out there. Everyone has a business development team, or they think they have a strong sales leader in their CEO or someone on their staff, and I think that's incredibly important that you do have those folks. I think that also, as the landscape has shifted, B2B is harder than ever, especially in outsourcing. And I'm sure you guys know that. It's changed to where everyone's already got a partner. So it's kind of like, well, how do you become a champion challenger? How do you protect your assets, for that matter? I think working with different advisors and advisor organizations out there, that's what the client is starting to head towards. They're working with companies like Outsource Consultants or Customer Connect Panel, or different advisors like myself or a Peter Ryan. There's a number of different people and partners out there that you can take advantage of that don't break your bank in terms of, like, whether it's a monthly fee or whether it's a commission standpoint. That's not always about that. It's about just getting more eyes on your business and having people that promote the Jamaican industry and the Jamaican location, but then also the Jamaican BPOs, I think is incredibly important for you guys. I think it's important that you build governance and QBRs into your contract. I think it's important along the way that as you're partnering with these organizations, you're sharing insights immediately, not just reports. If you're just sending dashboards, it's going to fall apart. I can tell you, I think back to one opportunity that I led a while back. It was all, the vendor does this for us. When we tell them to jump, it's how high. And that's not how any client or vendor manager should ever behave. I think it's all about sharing insights, being a crutch for one another. It's about negotiating and partnerships. It's about just being transparent along the way, whether it's in contracts, reporting, issues, anything that comes up. I know I can call my team. I can call Jackie Sutherland. I can call Corinne McKenzie, Ashley Martin. I could call them right now. Put you on mute, call them. One of them will answer. I can talk through whatever I need through. If it's a win for me and a loss for them, they'll still entertain it. If it's a win for both of us, which is all what we always try to get to, they're going to do it. They're one of the greatest partners that I've ever had the experience in working with, and they just nail it. Like, pick up the phone, answer it, and let's find a way to get to, a win-win for both of us. And that's how everyone needs to look at it. It's about making yourself indispensable. You have to anticipate issues before the client even asks. You guys see the data before we do it on the client side. You guys know what's already there. Be transparent. Don't wait. Just be like, oh gosh, Brad just saw the dashboard and he's going to blow us up. Be like, hey, here's the dashboard. We see that we have this problem. We're working on it with, taking actions and steps A, B, and C. Reliability, proactive communication is what that's all about. That's how you increase your loyalty. Increase partnerships. And I say this, and this is something that Conrad and I were talking about, that, at the very beginning. If you don't have a tech stack partner right now, whether it's through a CRM, a CCaaS solution like Genesis, CX1, Aspect, Connex AI, anything like that, get one. Be working with a flagship place like that. And I say that because there have been a number of times where it's happened to me. I've worked with a different CCaaS platform like Aspect or engage, and all of a sudden they were like, hey, we're decommissioning the circuit, blah, 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 this is happening. If our vendor didn't have a tremendous relationship with CX1, we'd have been doomed. They got us pivoted over, forwarding mechanisms put in place. We made the move for free, not because they made it happen, but just because that's just the way it worked out. They integrated our phone numbers. We got everything set up. You know, having something that's like that is something that can just, that's a retention tool for you. I also think it's incredibly valuable from a language and redundancy standpoint that you guys partner with other BPOs. I was in the country of Georgia not long ago, and we were having dinner, and I was working with someone out of Romania and another person out of the Philippines, and we're just having a conversation. And I said, well, tell me about the BPOs that you partner with. And like, we would never partner with another BPO. I'm like, well, why not? I'm like, you only speak these languages. He only speaks these languages. What if you have a client that says, I need these languages? I'm like, no, it's not the same amount of money, but it's a form of revenue sharing at the same point. Like, but then you don't have to worry about them going to get a different champion challenger that you don't know about. Like, why not have backup support within a trusted partner? You know, find people that are down in St. Lucia or Trinidad or even in Egypt or South Africa. Have a contingency plan that not only pivots you to be able to support different languages, tech stacks, but also different regions if there's scalability from a global standpoint. Those are things that are incredibly important to the partners and to the clients, is understanding what's your redundancy backup plan. If your only location is in Montego Bay or in Kingston or just one shop on the island, it's important that you have a good disaster recovery plan, but it's also important that you have a backup partner that's out there as well too. Going back to implementation partners, you heard my story in how we've been working with C360 and that team there. They have a great implementation partner that's doing a project for us right now that's integrating Salesforce with CX1 and SAP, a monumental project that they're going to knock out in about 90 to 120 days. We're coming up on the deadline soon, and it's going to change the way that we do business. And it's because, you know, we lost our IT team, and luckily C360 had someone there for us. It was a great opportunity for them to put forth this subcontractor and get them in work with us, and it's meant all the world to us and how we're going to be doing our business. So we're thrilled with where we're going there. So closing call to action, I think the important thing here is sharpening your edge as a BPO vendor. If there's anything that you guys ever need help with, you know, I'm not here to sell myself or to, like, gain new clients and things like that. Like I said, Jamaica has a piece of my heart. It really does. And I want to help this country grow in every way, shape, or form, because the people there mean so much to me. You know, so if there's anything I can do to help support, whether it's refining your RFP responses, having someone from the client side be there to help discuss use cases for you, helping you strategize new pricing models to help you stay more competitive, or to even just give advice on a pitch deck and things like that, I have enough resources there to where, you know, you won't have a pitch deck that looks like mine here. You'd actually have something super professional. But if there's anything I can ever do to ever help support any of you or or point you in the right direction, please let me know. You know, Conrad's done a great job working with JAMPRO since he's joined, and I think JAMPRO and O2J, it's just getting stronger. And you know, I commend you guys on holding strong in that market, and just keep doing what you can to move things forward and support your people.
Thank you, Brad. Really appreciate that comprehensive presentation on how to grow our business. I mean, you have shared with us some critical points that we need to consider when we're approaching clients trying to win their business. And now we're going to open the floor for some questions that you may have for Brad. If you do have a question, please type it in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat, and then we will just share those with Brad and to have him answer as best as he can. So we're now opening the floor for questions. And then I'm going to ask, of course, Miss Deidre Dixon to get ready. She will be doing the vote of thanks and closing remarks. So go ahead. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. We're monitoring the chat to see those questions. Any questions? Or was it as clear as mud, as we like to say here in Jamaica? Questions, I see where we have somewhere in the region of about 20-25 participants. So if you do have questions, please ask them now. Going once, going twice. Okay, so just so you know, we have recorded the presentation and we will be sharing it with you via email. So please look out for that in your emails. And I just also want to add here that, oh, I'm seeing a note where it says that chat is disabled. So perhaps, Kingsley, you can enable the chat so that the questions can come through. And I noticed that Brad just dropped in the chat his contact information. I was just about to say that if you need to follow up with Brad, you could reach out to us, but he has actually just dropped his contact information in the chat. So you can go over there and you can see how you can get in touch with him. And I will encourage those of you who are looking to grow your BPO business to really reach out to somebody like a Brad. He has the experience in the market. He not only have the experience on the client side and what the clients are looking for, but he can also help you to position your pitch deck to succeed when you're engaging with these clients. So he's a critical plug in the wheel that we definitely need to connect with. And so we're asking as for you to reach out to him and to carry forward the conversation as to how he can help you to grow your business.
Absolutely. Yeah, Conrad, I would say, for those of you, I don't think I've ever met a person that's like, I love responding to RFPs. I actually, for some weird way, I do like responding to RFPs. I've done enough to create them and respond to them and score them and judge them on the client side. But I think from the vendor side, an extra set of eyes can go a long way. And those are things that I just like to help out for fun. I don't use that. I don't charge anyone for help with RFP responses and things like that. I think it's just a fun activity. And again, that's just my goal here for you guys, is to help gain new business.
Yeah, I suspect, Brad, we will soon start dubbing you the geek of RFPs.
I hope not.
No, but on a serious note, though, I mean, I think this is really very opportune for us here in Jamaica. Not often do we get someone who is quite so willing to assist and to help. You are definitely gaining points on your Jamaica citizenship score. So we really want to thank you for that. So there's a question here on pricing. It says, thoughts on pricing. I have seen recently rates ranging from 12 to 19 USD, but feel clients still expect much lower rates given the region. What says you, Brad?
Yeah, that's a great one to call out there. So if they're comparing, Jamaican rates, everything. So I'll tell you this. I know if you're in South Africa, the rates there are going to be right around $12 an hour. Egypt, $10 to $12 an hour. But I can tell you from a North American standpoint, those aren't areas that we really want to continue to look at. And when I see organizations that are offering 12 to 19, that makes me think that that's probably for tiered services, like $12 for tier one. I think is fair. I think it's also, important to look at what's the headcount look like? Is it do they want $12 for like 10 headcount, or do they want $12 for 50 headcount? Those are important things that are out there. It's also important to understand what it looks like from a talent development standpoint. What's their training look like? Are you doing it? Are they doing it? Those are the important things there. And I think the other parts that, if it's important to leverage lower rates for your end to be more competitive, well, then going back to that same point is, I think, looking at different ways to build incentives into the SAL, where if we meet your OKRs or beat your OKRs or your KPIs that you want to put in there, we want a 2% increase. We want a 3% bonus, from a quarterly standpoint. I think those are all types of things. $19 USD in Jamaica. I think I've seen that a few times, like on someone's original pitch. And I think I've moved forward with organizations at $19, but when we say go back and sharpen the pencil, then next thing you know, it comes into like $14.50. And that's kind of the sweet spot. I think the important thing that I always tell people when I'm sitting on the vendor side and I'm pitching to a client or I'm helping, the vendor pitch to the client, I usually say, we like to do a little bit more because we know that we need to pay our people a little bit better. It's very competitive. Think about Montego Bay and Kingston, highly competitive markets. You might cost a little bit more, but that's to retain long-term talent. That's not just to get butts in seats and warm bodies taking calls or doing chats or anything. It's about investing in the people and ensuring that they can live lives. And that way, when you start to think about brand loyalty, it's also about people loyalty too. If they're offering too low of rate and they're just still having high attrition, well, it's kind of out the window and it's still sunk cost. So, stick to your guns and what's right for you. You guys have your own business models and what you're paying. I also think headcount ratios are something that need to come into it. I think that's something on the client side they don't think of too often. Make sure your headcount ratios make sense, 1 to 15 from a supervisor standpoint. Don't just give everyone an operations manager to give one, share it where you can. But build out supportive models that are there, and then also work to get tech with that partner too, to be like, hey, if you don't need as many QA people because you have, auto AI, QA, speech analytics, and things like that, use that to your advantage. So that way you can keep lower competitive rates. So I hope that answers the question. What types of services support the low end and then high end of the range? I would think types of service would be inbound customer service. It's definitely not technical support, but those lower ranges, probably going to be tier 1 and then tier 3 being up to technical support or some IT dev work or things that are like that. How have I found success sourcing new third-party clients on the open market? LinkedIn is tough. I think for me, I've had the luxury this year of traveling a lot to different markets, to Europe and throughout North America and things. I do broker to a certain extent. I have, done things on LinkedIn. I think the most important thing is to get out there on conferences. And if I were to give anyone in Jamaica advice and something that is not done rarely, if at all, from a BPO standpoint, how you market yourself is important. Now, LinkedIn marketing, I don't think has a great ROI on it. I don't think it's going to attract very many people there. I think you can get data out of LinkedIn and then push your ad space to Facebook or Meta. I think those are going to be where some of the clear things are there. That's where I would give my advice. I've also worked with people that are advisors like myself, and they will sit side by side. They might introduce a deal, but they also will just help co-facilitate like the deal to like kind of be your second set of business development eyes and ears. And I've seen that be very successful as well too. But it's all about networking. If you have the ability to get to conferences where buyers are going to be, those are going to be important. I think like CCW, that's really expensive for you guys to go to. It's like $4,500 a ticket. I would look at different conferences. Think about like, waste management, that's out there. They have a big conference in Texas. You could go there for free. No one's ever looking at contact center vendors for waste management, not the actual company, but just that industry. You'll find a bunch of clients sitting at the bar that will be like, I don't have anyone that can work my contact center. I don't have anyone that could do this. And that's probably an easy 10-seat deal. Probably one of the easiest ones that you'll be able to find. Rental cars too, always a big one, because you see these rental cars that are out there like Dollar and Ace and all these other ones. Those are all franchises. Very rarely are they actually like corporate places. And most people usually own about 2 or 3 of them, so you can find a good opportunity to get in there. I hope that helps answer the question.
Thanks, Brad. Listen, so there's a comment. It's not a question, but I'd like to thank Brad for sharing that there is a shift towards a more adaptive, agile way of doing business. Example, collaborating with other businesses. Absolutely. Especially in the ITO space, we are learning that collaboration and partnerships are the way to go, especially for small countries like Jamaica, who might not necessarily have the scale. When you do partner, you're able to offer, solution to prospective clients in a way that suggests that you'll be able to handle the job.
Yeah.
Uh, the comment from an attendee, we find still many clients wanting more services, but rock bottom prices. So I think, Brad, what is coming across here is that, what our participants are saying is that when they do go to market to try and attract new clients, pricing seems to be, one of those main hurdles that they need to get over.
Yep. Yeah. So I would say that I know is a tough one, because when you work with like the different markets that are out there, like specifically thinking of Southeast Asia, right? That's usually where it can get the cheapest, where you can get down to that $8 an hour range. The days of going to like $8 an hour in Southeast Asia for, excuse me, for like 10, 15 headcount, it's off the table. That doesn't happen anymore. And if someone does get you that figure, like it's not going to last, and it's not going to be a good situation. So I think it's important to articulate those things. Now, I was giving a colleague of mine some advice on this one, the other day, and they had asked, what do you think about this? They want me to go down to $10 an hour. And I said, can you go that low? And he said, oh, maybe, but I don't want to. And I'm like, any margin, any profit for you? It was not really, it's just getting the new logo. And I said, well, cool. I said, I think you should offer them an introductory rate. Give them year one pricing, prove your mettle, build some incentives into the SOW, and then say, then I'm going to need like a 3% lift or a 5% lift for year two, and then a 2% for year three. Working up, proving yourself, gaining that mettle, getting some, some loyalty built in there. I think it's thinking about, short-term wins, but with long-term gains. Like getting that client in-house is the most important thing. And finding ways to be flexible with your cash flow is really important. I know that's easier said than done, but I would look at, even just introductory rates for 5 headcount, 10 headcount, whatever it may be, to be competitive in that. And that way they can see the value in it. But no, let them know, like, in your contract, like prices go up after 1 year. And if they see that your value is high, they're not going to go anywhere, because they know how long it takes to ramp up and scale and do things with other companies. From a client's perspective, do you still regularly check your emails for outsourcing opportunities? Do cold emails still work in outsourcing? Do you find graphical or text-based emails preferable? It's very rare that I have a lot of rules set up on my site. I think cold email is still really difficult right now. And I think, you heard my comment at the beginning where I think B2B sales are extremely difficult right now. And I think it's more about finding new ways to gain streams of revenue, whether it's through partnerships, whether it's through networking, going to conferences and things like that. You'll present better if you're in person. I think it's okay to shoot some emails here and there, but everyone's so inundated, because what AI has really brought in is just a cluster of different emails from people that don't know how to do automated outreach at all. So I think that makes it difficult on the client side to really hone in and see those types of things that are there, unless they know what's happening. So I would say, my advice is to, still do your outbound marketing, but you'd be surprised how far $200 a month can go in meta advertising, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram. As long as your content is polished, I think you would see a lot more value in doing that.
All right. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we could stay here all morning having this kind of discussion. So I really want to thank you guys for coming on. Brad, thank you so much. But the vote of thanks is reserved for the lovely Miss Deidre Dixon. And so I'm going to ask her to do that at this point.
Good morning, everyone. I would really like to thank all of you for joining us today, especially Brad. So, before I was having a little issue with internet connectivity, because I'm actually not in office. And I would just like to thank the team for giving me the time to just work that out. And thank you guys for actually staying on. Thank you, Conrad, for actually filling in for me. Now, on behalf of JAMPRO, I want to thank our guest speaker, Brad Meiller, for generously sharing his expertise with us today and for his offer to continue supporting our GDS stakeholders. I encourage you to reach out to Brad if you would like guidance or insights as you work to grow your business and expand internationally. I also want to take the time out to thank each of you for joining us. I know that you're very busy. One clear takeaway is that we must keep finding better ways to put Jamaica's value proposition out there. We are much more than just a nearshore location. We have a strong CX talent pool, a deep cultural affinity with the USA, and proven expertise that makes us stand out. And when responding to RFPs, we should do so with credibility, accurately, knowledgeably, and never with generic information. We must keep our pitch decks concise, punchy, and focused on the unique value that we offer, not just on pricing. It should not be the size of an encyclopedia, just concise and punchy enough. And remember, the best client relationships are really built on strong relationships. They're built to last. We must share insights, guide our clients, and position ourselves as a trusted partner, not just a service provider. By combining confidence, clarity, and relationship-driven strategies, we can continue to win new opportunities and strengthen Jamaica's reputation as a trusted partner in the global digital services space. Right. So, I really, Brad really emphasized all those points. He was clear in bringing them across. And I really want to thank you guys for staying with us during this webinar to hear these really important points. Thank you once again, Brad, for sharing those with us and for really offering your assistance and support to all of us. We appreciate it. So once again, on behalf of JAMPRO, we want to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing your success stories. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of the day.